friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card with Hello Bluebird's Gone Surfin' stamp set. So I've stamped those images out on Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers. So I am starting with my monkey, and I wanted to color him like an orangutan. I have never colored one before, so I thought it would be fun to try. So for his skin, I went with some E40 shades. I used E41, E42, and E43, laying in some shadow around the outside of his face, on the inner parts of his ears, and on the base of his hands and legs. Then I blended that out with the E42 and also the E41, and then I decided I wanted the center part of his face to be a little bit lighter, so I brought in E40 as well and used that on the outer part of his ears and the tips of his fingers and toes. And then for his fur, I'm going to go with some reddish brown tones. I'm using E13, E15, and E17. So I'm starting with the E17, and again just laying in some shadow around the shape of his face and then also on the tips of his hair. I really love how it's kind of blowing in the breeze. I think it just really gives him a lot of movement and fun. I'll also place it on the underside of his arms, around the edges of his belly, and on the inner parts of his legs. And then I'm going to start blending that out with the E15, just pulling that darkest color into the mid-tone and dragging that a little bit further so I don't get any harsh lines. And then I'll come in with my lightest shade, the E13, and color in the rest of him so he has a nice highlight, and I think he turned out super cute. Then I'm going to move on to my koala, and for that I'm going to use W00, W1, plus E70 and E71. So I'm starting with the E71 and doing his shadows, and all of these critters are mainly facing forward. They're tilted slightly, but their shadows are mainly falling equally on the faces, especially for the orangutan and the koala. And then I'm going to blend out the E71 with the E70, and then I'll switch to the W00 to pull that in further on the face, on the outer parts of the ears, on his chest and belly. I did shade the chest area more on the left since that part is twisted a little bit more toward the right. And then I'll use the W00 for the highlight. And then I'm going to move on to my crocodile or alligator, whatever you want it to be. And I'm going to use the BG90s for him. I really love these shades and I don't use them very often, but I thought this would be a perfect opportunity because they are in the blue-green family. They're going to match very well with the blue shades that I'll be using on the background, but also they're very desaturated, and so I thought that they would go well with the shades that I have already used on the orangutan and the koala. So I'm starting with the BG99 and laying in my shadows. He is facing a little bit differently than the other critters because his head is tilted toward the right, but his body is more facing toward the left. So I'm just switching up my shadows a little bit depending on which body part I'm coloring. And so once I have that BG99 laid in, I'm going to come in with the BG96 and start to blend that out. And then continue blending with the BG93, saving a bit of room for that BG90 for the highlight. Now the BG90 is very light, and so it does take a bit of work to blend that with the BG93. I had to work back over their area quite a bit. And I'm actually even going to do a bit of tip-to-tip action just to make that blend a little bit more smooth, especially around his muzzle area. I just felt like there wasn't a great transition there, so just picking up a little bit of that BG93 with the BG90 marker and then coloring that in. Then I'll do the scales down his back with just the BG99, so they're a little bit darker. And I'm going to mix it up and do some more fun shades on his belly. They're still going to be in the green families, but I wanted to just brighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to use G40, G43, and G46 for every other stripe, starting with the G46, and I'm placing the shadows on the right since his belly is tilted toward the left, so that's where the sun would be coming from. Blending that out with the G43 and then the G40 for the highlight. And then for the rest of the stripes, I'm going to go with some yellow greens. I'm using YG00, YG01, and YG03, and just coloring those in the same way. While I have those colors out, I'm also going to do the bottom stripe of the orangutan's surfboard. So I'm putting that YG03 on the left and then blending across. And then I'm also going to go back to the other green combo that I used on the crocodile's belly. I forgot to color that in earlier when I had them out. So I just pulled those back out to do the top part of the orangutan's surfboard. So we get those colors kind of tied in another part. Then I'm going to switch up to some yellows. I'm using Y13, Y15, and Y17 to do the orangutan's shorts, and just shading those again as his body is, with the shadows on the left and the highlight on the right. And then I'm going to use the yellows for the center stripe on the crocodile's surfboard. So I'm just tying in those colors across the card where they appear in the more accessory images or with the crocodile's belly. Since he's not wearing a bathing suit, I kind of treated his belly like his suit, just using that to add a bit of brighter color. I added those yellows to the bottom of the koala's surfboard, and then I'm going to switch to some blue tones. I'm using B41, B52, and B45 for the koala's bathing suit. And so coloring his the same way that I did the orangutans, with the shadows on the left and the highlight on the right, since that's the way their bodies are facing. I'll tie that blue in with the bottom stripe of the crocodile's surfboard. So starting with the B45, then doing the B52, and then the B41. And then I also wanted to tie in the orangutan's color, but not exactly. I didn't want to do the same shade as his fur, so I went with a bit of a brighter orange, and I used YR12, YR14, and YR18 to do the last stripe on the crocodile's surfboard and also the top of the koala's surfboard. And I thought about breaking that up into 3 stripes as well, like the crocodiles, but I decided not to. I decided to just do the top part solid because I didn't want to introduce any other colors into those accessory images. I did do a second layer though because I wasn't quite happy with the shadows. And then I'm going to do some rosy cheeks for all of these guys. So I'm using R22 and R20 for the orangutan and the crocodile. So R22 first, and then blending out with the R20. And then for the koala, because he's a little bit lighter, I started with the R20 and blended out with the R11. I also did his mouth with the R22. Then for the little splash marks, I'm going to use BG45 and BG57, just the 2 shades since it's a super small little area to color. The BG57 first, and then blending out with the BG45 for the bigger ones. The smaller little droplets were just the BG57. Then I'll grab a black Sakura Jelly Roll pen and go over the eyes of my critters so they're nice and bright and shiny, and trim these images out with their matching dyes. For my background, I'm going to take the Big Wave Scene die and trim that out of 3 different colors of cardstock. I've got Lawn Fawn, Peacock, and Mermaid, plus some more Spectrum Noir white cardstock. And then I've also created a card base that is 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 out of another piece of mermaid cardstock. And I'm going to start assembling this die directly on my card front. So I'm going to start with the outer frame, and I'm going to line that up with the edges and make sure that that is on there nice and straight, because that is going to ensure that all of my pieces fit together seamlessly inside. It's kind of like a puzzle, and I like to start with the biggest pieces first. So the largest piece of this die is the sky portion. So I'm going to take that and glue that to my card front. So I'm using the mermaid again for the sky. Just making sure that I add a fair bit of glue there so that all of the little bits will be securely pressed down. And then I'll just line that up inside the frame. Then I'm going to take the top crest of the wave from the white cardstock and add my liquid glue to the back of that and fit that right where it goes. It's almost like building a puzzle. It's actually very fun to put together. I really enjoy this. My next section is going to be from the peacock cardstock. So I'm just carefully separating out the part that I need. And then I'm going to glue that down next. Again, just using my Barely Art Precision Craft Glue because it has that super fine nozzle, so I can get in all those little nooks and crannies to make sure that everything will be well secured. And then I will just fit that into place and press that down until that glue starts to adhere. It doesn't take very long at all. Next, I'll move on to another white section, and this one is a little bit more delicate, but it still fits together very nicely and holds its shape. So I'm just going to continue working on this, and while I'm doing that, I'm actually going to talk about these new supplies from Hello Bluebird. So if you haven't heard the news, Hello Bluebird has switched to doing monthly kits. This is our very first ever for the month of July. And in the first kit, you get 2 stamp sets with their coordinating dies, plus a background die and a sentiment die. In the second kit, which is the larger of the 2, you get everything that you got in kit 1, plus 2 extra stamp sets and an extra background die. So the stamp set and this die that I'm using for today's card are actually included in kit number 2. And then the sentiment set that I'll be using toward the end was from kit number 1. There's also 4 additional die sets that you can purchase separately with either of the first or second kits. And so they are going to be available for a limited time only. Once they're gone, they're gone. So I would grab those if you want them while you have the opportunity. So going back to assembling this die, I know it can look a little bit intimidating, but it's actually very easy to put together. And like I said, I like to start with the largest pieces first and then start to fill in the smaller pieces. And sometimes I even will just add the glue directly to the card for those smaller pieces. I find that a little bit easier than adding the glue to the die cuts themselves. And just adding that in and then slipping them into place, and everything fits together really beautifully. It's very well designed, and it has such an impact once it's all together. I just think it looks so cool. I love that movement. So for the birds and the sun, I actually wanted to color those in a bit before I pop them into place. So I'm taking a T7 marker and just adding a little black to the edges of the bird's wings. And I found it easier to leave them in the die cut rather than popping them out and coloring them, because then I don't have to worry about like hanging on to them because they're very small. And also I can remember which bird goes where. So I just found it much easier to do it that way. And then for the sun, I wanted to color that as well. So since I'm using the Spectrum Noir cardstock for the white parts, which is the same cardstock that I do all of my Copic coloring on. I can color these really nicely and easily. So for the sun, I'm using Y15, Y13, and then I'm going to bring in Y11 next. And I'm just concentrating that color down toward the lower right, and then the highlight is going to be towards the top left and then in the center. So Y11 next, and then for the very center, I'm going to use Y000. And just make sure that that is nicely blended. It was a little bit patchy at first, so I am going to go back and just do a second layer and just sweep some of that color back over it until I'm happy with how it's looking. And then I can just add some liquid glue where that sun is supposed to go and pop that down into place. Very quick and easy. And actually you could stop here if you wanted to. I think the background already looks very nice, but I wanted to embellish it a bit more with my Copics and just create a bit more movement. Sometimes just plain colored cardstock can look a little flat, and I love to color, so I just wanted to see what else I could do with it. And so I brought in the BG45 marker, and I'm just following the shape of the water on the waves and adding little streaks in. So I started with a BG45 marker because it is a bit lighter. It's going to dry even lighter after it has a little bit of time there. And then I can darken it up if I want to, and so that's why I started with that shade. But yeah, I'm just following the shapes and adding a few little lines here and there to kind of create a bit more motion in the water and make it look as if it's really moving. Then I'm going to darken it up with the BG57 because I decided I did like it. Now you can see how that BG45 started to dry, and the BG57 will dry back a bit more as well, but it'll be a bit more prominent than the BG45. So just adding a few more little streaks here and there. It was very quick and easy to do. And then I am going to add a bit of color to the white parts of my water as well. And for those, I'm going to use BG10. So again, I'm starting really light because I wasn't sure how it was going to look, and just adding a little bit of color there, just following the lines. The white lines are a little bit thinner, so I'm trying to use the very tip of my marker and just add light pressure. And then for the top crest of the wave, I'm just kind of streaking it in, feathering it in, and leaving some white at the top and the bottom so that it doesn't look totally blue, but just has a bit more color to it and isn't quite so flat. And then I'm going to darken that up with BG11. So again, just following those same lines and adding it here and there. Not everywhere where I put the BG10, but just in a few little places. And then also on the crest of that wave as well. Just some quick little streaks, and I kept it very simple. And then for that top crest, since we have more room, I just went back over that with the BG10. Then I ran that die through my die cutting machine once again so that I could get a second frame. I wanted to just have that be a bit more substantial on the card. So I'm adding some liquid glue to that, and I'm going to pop it up right over top of the first one. And I'm just making sure to line that up nice and straight so I don't have any gaps between the background and that frame before that glue starts to set up. And then I just wanted to show you a comparison between the one that I added a little bit of Copic embellishing to and a plain one. So either one I think looks great, but it's just up to you which you prefer. Then I'm going to take a piece of Lawn Fawn fake tan cardstock, and I'm going to die cut the Hello Summer die out of that. I'm only going to be using the word hello on this card today, but I'm going to save the word summer, and I'll probably use that on the other background that I just showed you for a second card. So I'm just going to peel off the letters that I want to use from my little cutting mat, and I'll get those lined up where I want them on the card. I'm going to play a bit with how I want them, whether I wanted it a little bit wonky or if I wanted it straight. I decided to go straight for today's card. I just felt like it suited the scene the best. And then I'm going to pick up those letters with my EK Success reverse tweezers. I'll add some liquid glue to the back of them and then set them back into place. That way I can make sure that they are spaced just how I want them to be. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the die set that is included with Kit 1. So if you buy the smaller of the two kits, you would get this included. And if you buy the larger of the two kits, it's also included because everything in Kit 1 is also in Kit 2, plus some additional stamps and dies. All of the stamps and dies from both kits plus the add-ons have a beachy summery theme, which is so fun and perfect timing for me because I just got back 2 days ago as I'm filming this from driving my son cross country and moving him out to LA. So I will be sending him this card so that he has like a little hello from home. So I am stamping the word waving on my card just above the word hello. It actually says waving hello, but I am masking off the word hello so that I could use the die cuts. And I'm stamping that in VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I felt like the G wasn't quite dark enough, so I just stamped that a third time. And then I can open up this card so I can stamp on the inside. I'm going to do that in some Lawn Fawn Peacock ink. And I chose the little monkey and the Surf's Up sentiment, which is so cute. Really, really love that. I stamped that down twice to make sure it was nice and bold. And now I can start to add in my images. So I'm going to figure out the layout for these little critters first, decide who is going to go where. And once I'm happy with the placement, I can start to glue things down. So yeah, it was a really fun but absolute whirlwind of a trip. We took 3 days to get from northern Pennsylvania out to LA, and we drove through 9 different states, including several that I had never been to before. So the new ones for me were Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. I'd never been to any of those before, and it was really cool to see the landscape start to change and become more dry and desert-like, and even the grasses were different. They were a different color, different texture. It was just so much fun, and we ended up having time to stop at the Grand Canyon, which I had never been to and didn't think I'd ever get to see, and it was absolutely incredible. Oh my gosh. If you ever get the chance to go, definitely do. And then once we were in LA, we had time to go visit the Santa Monica Pier, which was really fun. And then we also went to the Griffith Observatory and saw the Hollywood sign. So yeah, it was all within 5 days. Then we flew back. We drove so that my son would have his car out there, and then my husband and I flew back. So 5 days total, but it was really fun, and I really hope my son is going to do well out there. My heart is kind of breaking having my first child out of the house, but I know it's an important step for him, and so I'm just trusting that everything will go okay. So I colored the letters with the same oranges that I had used on my surfboards just to give it a little extra oomph. And then I am taking a bit of Stardust Stickles and adding it to the white parts of my waves. I know this is a masculine card, but I think my son will be okay with it. I just felt like the waves needed a bit of sparkle, and I think it really did add something special to this card. And I just really hope that he's going to like it. He's out there all by himself. He is sharing a house with 6 other guys, so he'll have some built-in friends to make, but as of now, he doesn't know a single person out there. Actually, one of his roommates is from Australia, so I thought that was fun that I included the koala there. But anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this one and that he'll enjoy it too. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell if you'd like to be alerted whenever I post a new video. I will have a link to the Hello Bluebird web shop down below in case you'd like to pick up one of these kits for yourself. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. You can click on either one to check them out. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye-bye!